A police chief finally admits his department is racist as hell. Okay, Toronto police chief, this is so interesting, owns up to the racial profiling happening in his department. Let's put his picture up, full mass. He finally admitted to what Black residents and activists have been saying forever, that his department is rife with systemic racism. His name is James Raymer. So what did he do? He held a press conference and he apologized at the press conference. He said, whoa, I am so sorry that we're racist. The apology came after a newly released data pack showing that individuals who are non-white are racially profiled. The data was clear. He could not argue the data. As challenging, the chief said, as it is for me as chief and for members of our command and service to come to terms with what our data tells us, I know that it will be even more difficult for those from Toronto's Black communities who have been telling us for many years of their experiences. And I want our communities to know I am listening. What? You're listening to the data. You didn't listen to the Black people. You got to understand this. He's listening because a data set was published. He's not listening because Black victims have been screaming, we are being victimized by your police. Let's put up the picture of the woman who called him out. Raymer, the chief, was called out by this woman, Beverly Bain. Miss Bain is a member of the No Pride in Policing Coalition and an assistant professor at the University of Toronto. Heavy hitter. Here's what she said to the chief.
And I'm here to address what I see as really egregious in terms of this particular a public relations stunt that has been delivered by our chief here, the Chief Raymer. This has nothing to do with the Black community. In fact, the Black community never asked for an apology. Neither did I think you were apologizing to the Black community. This was you apologizing to your rank, insulting to Black people. This is insulting to Indigenous people. This is insulting to racialized people. This is insulting to the homeless, to those of us who are queer. And what we have asked for you to do is to stop brutalizing us, to stop killing us.
Yeah, the request is simple. Change policy, fire people, resign your damn self. Let me give you the background to the data that the chief really was responding to. Once again, he wasn't responding to the Black victims. He was responding to the data. The Toronto Police Services analysis of 2020 data looked at 949 use of force incidents and 7,114 strip searches. It showed that when it comes to enforcement, Black people were overrepresented by 2.2 times compared to their share of the population, followed by Indigenous people at 1.6 times. Of those involved in a police interaction, Black people were 1.6 times more likely to experience use of force. According to the Toronto Star, when looking at the total population as a benchmark, police were 5 times more likely to use force on Black people than white people in 2020. The report found that Black, East, Southeast Asian people and South Asian people were more likely to have an officer point a gun at them by a factor of 1.5 times, 1.6 times, and 2 times respectively. Officers were 2.3 times more likely to point a gun at a Black person than a white person, even when they did not think the Black person was armed. And there's a lot more. Systemic bias, racism cannot be resolved with sentiment and apology. It is a rotten dynamic. You must take the rot out of the thing in order for the thing to heal. There's a rot, Chief. You're part of it. All right, David, an apology, that's all they got.
Well, I'm so glad you did this story, Dr. Richard, because I mean, we often look at Canada and think, oh my goodness, Canada's doing it right. They've got universal health care. They're far more responsible about guns. They have fewer murders. But what this shows is that racism cuts through, particularly when you're in a power dynamic, which is what policing is. And even in Canada, racism, racial profiling has reared its ugly head, even in a great city like Toronto. And I think it's a reminder, the reason we focus so much on police and law enforcement is because that's where racism tends to play out the most in our society, whether we're talking about America, North America, Canada, whatever it is. That's why we focus so much on this. And again, it's not enough, as you point out, to just apologize. In order for us to make real change, there has to be action. There has to be a different approach that we can see, that we can feel, so that these communities can understand that, no, this is being taken seriously.
Very well said, brother.